Wonderful. So thank you all again for joining our webinar today. Today we'll be focusing on helping you all get started with Airtable from a spreadsheet. My name is Becky, and I'm a Customer Success Manager here at Airtable. And also leading the webinar with me is Jacob, my teammate on the product side. And before we get started, for those folks who just joined, if you have questions during the webinar at any point, please use the questions tab to the right of the screen share rather than the chat tab, as the questions tab allows you to upvote other questions and it's just more conducive to the live Q&A portion of our webinar. And if you're interested in a recording of the webinar, the replay will be available on Airtable's Livestorm page, aka where you actually click to access the webinar right after the webinar is over. So in terms of our agenda today, first I'll be walking you through how Airtable might look like a spreadsheet, but it's actually a powerful database at its core. And next, I'll be going over the main similarities and differences between spreadsheets and databases, and why you probably need a database for your workflow. Last but not least, I'll be showing you how to structure a spreadsheet for a seamless import into Airtable, as well as how to reconfigure common spreadsheet setups so they can be seamlessly imported as well. So first of all, what is Airtable? Airtable might look like a spreadsheet, but it's actually a powerful, flexible, and collaborative database that you can customize for you and your team's workflow. Spreadsheets were built for accounting. Databases, on the other hand, allow you to organize information because they were built to show the relationships between related information. So whether you're managing customers in a sales pipeline and you need to keep track of the contacts and companies and interactions, or you're running a marketing calendar or a production calendar and you need to track the campaigns, assets, and channels, or you're producing an award-winning television series, or anything in between, you can use a database to capture the nuances of the related details in your specific workflow. So at its core, Airtable offers this user-friendly database, which we affectionately call a base, that you can completely customize to your workflow. You can mix and match features to build your own tool. For example, you can standardize what each field contains by choosing the field type for which your content falls under. So for example, you can add attachments, you can add drop-down menus, you can add collaborators, dates, as well as any other field type that's present in the field configuration menu. You can also find what you need with custom views. Airtable allows you to display your information with custom filters and groups and sorts, but you can also create as many views as you need so that you and your team can work simultaneously with the same information with different filters, different groups, different sorts. We also offer 5 additional views, or rather we offer 4 additional views to the standard grid that you might be expecting. So we also offer a calendar, Kanban, and gallery and form, which takes the information that you add in your grid and automatically populates it so that it is a calendar or Kanban or a gallery. Our core product also allows you to show relationships by linking related content. So you can link, in this case, tasks and projects together in this example, but essentially you can create these relations between tables for any related information you need to keep track of, which allows you to say goodbye to duplicate data entry and create these smart relationships. Airtable also takes it one step further and allows you to use the information that you've added to your base and allows you to choose the blocks that you need to create a custom dashboard. Blocks include ways to visualize your information, generate actionable reports, add additional information through batch updates and import tools, essentially allowing you to create a custom dashboard that takes the information you've added to your base and automatically makes those changes to these visualizations. If you're coming from a traditional spreadsheet program, you'll notice that there are some key similarities and differences between spreadsheets and databases, even from this quick glimpse of what Airtable's product looks like. So we wanted to highlight today some of these key similarities and differences that you should know in order to make the most out of Airtable. To walk you through some of these, we wanted to show you through a sample base for an example use case. So let's say, for example, that we are on the marketing team for Table Air, a company that's launching a brand new self-assembling table in February. In their base, they're trying to manage their marketing projects that are all related to this launch. Some of the key similarities and differences that we'll be walking through is how in spreadsheets, you'll notice that, of course, we have rows, columns, and the ability to filter and sort, and tabs and charts and pivot tables. But in Airtable, we take it one step further for you so that you can make sure you can organize your information through records and field types and customized views, tables and linked records, and the blocks platform. And if you don't know what any of this is, that's totally okay. That's exactly what the next session is all about. Oops. I'm going to bounce over here to my Airtable workspace that I built out with this new demo called a Table Marketing Team. So one of the first similarities that we want to walk through is how you might recognize the rows and columns from a spreadsheet, but in Airtable, your information is actually organized by records and fields. Let me ungroup this for now. A record looks like a row, but it actually is made up of different fields. So essentially what you would add is the project name in the primary field here and the associated details to its right. So let's say our first project is establishing our brand identity, and we have a field for our due date, the status, the attachments related, the purpose of this project, request date, as well as project owner. If you go ahead and look at this field called due date, you notice that it's different from a column as well because you can actually customize what this field contains. You can choose from our long list of field types here. Essentially, for our due date, we'll want to choose a date so that whenever folks want to add a date, all they need to do is click into cell and you'll see that the only option for them is to add a date. Over here for our status, our field type has been configured to a single select, which means that it is a drop-down menu that allows you to select a single option. You can customize your options here. For example, you can add a new one called delayed, or you can even change the color so it shows up as red. And you can even add attachments directly through an attachment field that you can easily drag and drop images into, PDFs into, and any other file type, as well as add from various sources, including your desktop, a URL. You can even search for an image, as well as these various sources here as well. All of these different fields make up this entire project, which is our record, and you can even expand this record so you can get all those details about this project directly in this card layout. You see that all of these fields here are exactly what we saw in our grid view, and over in our right-hand side, we have the ability to see the revision history of this particular project, as well as the ability to @mention teammates and update them with any of these updates that you need to let them know about. Jacob will now receive, let me go back there, Jacob will now receive a notification through the mobile app as well as through his email. Another similarity that you might recognize is that you can also add filters and groups and sorts in Airtable just as you would be able to in a spreadsheet program. But in Airtable, you and your teammates can simultaneously create your own views with the same records, allowing everyone to see what they need, when they need, without affecting each other's views. In the sense that you won't be able to change their filter or their groups or their sorts. The content of the records will change between views and update accordingly, ensuring there's always a single source of truth. So in terms of showing you what I'm referring to, let's say Jacob, my teammate on this call, would also want to see, or rather, he only wants to see the projects that are currently in progress. What he can do is create a new view that says active projects or named active projects and is filtering where the status is in progress. You'll notice that these records are exactly the same as the ones that we saw in all projects, but they're only showing the ones that have this status. And let's say, for example, I want to see the projects that only I am the owner of. So I'm filtering for where the project owner is Becky. And now let's say that I want to make an update to your project in my view. Let's say that my due date for establishing my social media strategy is no longer the 27th, and it's actually the 30th. And I will now be able to go to my all projects and see that new date change reflected in established social media strategy, where my due date is now the 30th. That's because views are just different ways of looking at the same underlying information. And so if you make a change in one view that contains a record, that same record will reflect that change in any other view that it's present in. This allows you to always be on the same page as your teammates, as there's always a single source of truth. It's important to note that customizations for the view include not just only filtering, but also the ability to group, where you can group, let's say, for example, here, group by status, and easily collapse and expand all the various projects that fall under this group. But it's also possible to sort by any field as well. And what's also really important is that you can also hide fields that you don't need to see in your view. You can hide fields by toggling this hide fields menu over here, where you can easily toggle these on or off. And you can even move the position of the fields through this dialog as well. If you want to change your view so that no one can customize any of your field visibility, or any of the filters that you've added, or even any of the groupings that you've added, you can do so by making sure that you're toggling your view from a collaborative view to a personal view. The next similarity that you might recognize is that this grid looks very similar to what you might see in a traditional spreadsheet program. But in Airtable, the grid view is just one of the 5 types of views in Airtable. In addition to the grid view, you can easily display the same information in a calendar view, where you can see the date range of my project request date to my end date. That's also color-coded for the purpose. I can even change this to the status. And if you move dates, you can even see that same date change reflect in, you can even see that same date change reflect in your other views as well. So let's say establish brand identity, the request date actually was the 19th. I can now see that when I expand this record, it shows that the request date has been moved to the 19th. And just to take one step backwards, I'm currently using in my calendar the date range of request date to due date. I can change this so I don't use an end date and all I want to see is my due date, and that's also possible. Where then I can go over to the due date time period around January and even change this to project due dates as well. So again, if I move the date of established brand identity so that's due on the 9th instead of the 11th, I can go to my other views, for example, all projects, and see that the established brand identity due date has been changed to the 9th. The gallery view is really great for more visual workflows revolving around products, art, or any sort of attachments that you might be uploading into Airtable. So in this example, I have some sample images that show my invoices. So what I can do is actually customize my card so that the cover field highlights this attachment that I've uploaded. I can crop it, I can make sure that it fits, and I can also choose from any of my other attachment fields, as well as choose from no cover image if that's how I want to display my information as well. I can also choose to show as many or as little fields as I need in each of these cards by simply toggling on and off their visibility here as well. The Kanban view is really great when you not only have to visualize all of your records through a card, but also if you want to group them by a specific status, specific collaborator, or any other single select or collaborator field. The Kanban view allows you to drag and drop to change the associated grouping. So in this case, we're changing the brand identity from in progress to complete. Again, this automatically updates this record across the views that it's displayed in. Last but definitely not least, we also have our form view that allows you to see all of the fields that you've added in your grid directly into a form that you can share out with external users that don't have access to your base. A form view allows you to collect information in a structured as well as a branded way. For example, here you can see this is the field called project. This is the field that was purpose. And you can actually configure it so that you can make sure it's required. You can also add additional help text. You can see I've kept some of the fields that external users aren't responsible for filling out, dragged it over here to the left sidebar. If we wanted to actually include in the form, we could just drag it right back to our form here as well. In terms of how this looks externally, we can click on Share Form, and we can see that it looks like this, and external users can simply fill this out. So let's, for example, go with Project A, and that it is an advertising-related marketing project. I'm requesting it today, and ideally it is due on the 1st of February. Listen, what you just submitted, or rather what I just submitted, will automatically be added as a new record to our view. So you can see project A has been added. You can expand it to add the additional status. So once we accept this project, we can move it to in progress. We can add any relevant attachments by dragging and dropping or attaching through here, and quickly add the additional context that we need to have our team start working on it, so that we can make sure our marketing, make sure our team at Table Air will get this project. The fourth similarity is that, like spreadsheets, you can add tables to Airtable. The difference between how Airtable and spreadsheets treat tables is that tables are actually meant to contain one type of information. So in this case, we have our projects table that contains our projects and the project's details. And we can start a new table that's dedicated to our task related to each project and create a relationship between our projects and task table by linking them together. So this is a core difference between spreadsheets and Airtable and databases, in the sense that we can create a relationship between these related items. So again, connecting each of our tasks to the associated project. So let's say that we have multiple tasks for our projects. What we can do is create a new linked record field, which is what we've done here. Essentially what you would do is add a new field and configure it so it says link to another record, and choose the table that you'd like to link to. In this case, we'd like to link to our projects. As soon as we link our task table to our projects table, you can click into this new field and see that all of our projects are now present for you to choose from. This ensures that you're only limited to selecting the projects that are already present, but you can also add a new project directly through this, this dialog here by adding it through this expanded record. So you can see here, as soon as I've added project B through my task table, project B has been added automatically to a projects table as well. And now we can go ahead and move it along our pipeline. So let's say, for example, that this project falls, or rather this task falls under established brand identity, and we can use a fill handle to drag and drop that very quickly. And then let's say the next tasks are for social media. And we also have, of course, our launch party, which can be for the next few. And last but not least, we can have project A also have a few other tasks here as well. So now that I've created this relationship between our tasks and our projects, we can group by a project and quickly see that at a glance view of our projects and the tasks that fall under it. So we can quickly see that to-do list for each project. We can also quickly click into our project here and get that context about our project directly within our task table. You can see this white line up here that tells you where this information is getting pulled from and expanded from. So you can make sure that you never have to toggle between these two tables, as well as you no longer need to update any changes that happen to brand identity project in multiple places. You just need to link it out once and see it present everywhere else that it's been linked to. Last but not least, like spreadsheets, you can also visualize your information with pivot tables and charts. But unlike spreadsheets, Airtable offers a lot more ways to use your information with the blocks platform that are present here over on your right. There are 3 types of blocks. You can visualize information, you can enable collaboration, as well as there are blocks that help enrich your workflow, whether through importing or updating your existing information. Some of our most popular blocks include the chart block, the page designer block, pivot table blocks. And it's important to note that blocks are automatically updated through a specific table and a specific view, because they're built by pulling in this information from this table and that particular view. So let's say that I wanted to see the bandwidth of our team, where I can quickly see at a glance how many projects, or rather how many tasks that Jacob's working on and how many that I'm working on. I can tell my chart to pull from the task table, and I can tell my chart to pull from the all task view. For my x-axis, I can choose to display my status, so not started, in progress, incomplete, and I can even group by my task owner. I can create this from scratch by clicking add a block, adding a chart block, choosing the dashboard in which I'd like to add this chart to, and then choosing, again, here on the right-hand side, the settings for my chart. So let's say I also want to create a bandwidth chart for my overall projects. So I would choose my table to be projects and have my view to be all projects. And my x-axis, I can say project owner, and then I can group it by the actual status in which it belongs to. I can quickly see that all of my projects are complete. Jason is still working on one, and Myra has also completed his as well. So with all of this in mind, let's take a look at how you would actually import a spreadsheet. We wanted to walk through some of the common spreadsheet setups that we see when folks first get started with Airtable. You might, for example, have a spreadsheet where you have a different tab for different ways to organize your information. For example, all projects would exist in one tab, whereas projects by status over here is manually grouped, where you have your active and delayed and completed projects all living in a different section that you've built out manually. Another common spreadsheet setup is where you have a lot of metadata here on the top, and you also have a structured table on the bottom. Your different tabs might reflect the various projects and the various metadata that is captured in here on the top as well reflects all of those different projects. We would need to take a step back when we look at these spreadsheets because they would need some reconfiguring in order to ensure there is a seamless import from your existing traditional spreadsheet program over to Airtable. So to ensure a seamless import, what you would need to do is to first structure your spreadsheet like a database. So you would need to make sure that each field contains a single type of information so you can apply that field type later, as well as making sure that your field includes a field header in the very first row so that you can ensure that the field header gets translated over to Airtable as well. Next, you'll need to export your spreadsheet as a CSV file. So not an Excel file, but a CSV file, which stands for comma-separated values. Next, you can import your CSV as a new base or a new table within Airtable. You can then customize your base so that it comes alive with the correct field types, the right views, the right blocks to really superpower your workflow with these customization options. So let's walk through what that would look like. Oops, let me take a step back. We're still on this stage here. So what I've built out here are those examples that I just walked through. We have an example here where we see all of our project names in this tab here, and some project details, but we also have all our projects grouped manually, and again with active, delayed, and completed. In order to configure this spreadsheet so it works in Airtable, what I would do is add a brand new field over in our All Projects table so that we have our project status as a new column. It looks like the first two are active, the next two are delayed, and the last is completed. So I had to go ahead and add that here. Delayed and completed. So just to make sure that we're checking off all of our steps to make sure that this is configured correctly, we have the field header here on top. We have the same type of content in each field where all the owners are individuals, project details is text, the dates are all dates, and the status is all the various statuses that we can choose from. So now I can go ahead and export this as a CSV. So what I would do in Google Sheets is to click Download As and select comma-separated values.csv. You'll see that file exported directly into my Documents table, where I can then go ahead and go back to my Airtable workspace and add a brand new base and click on Import a Spreadsheet. I can then choose the CSV file, which I'm going to do now, where I can then select the CSV that I'd uploaded, or rather downloaded, and upload it and import it to my Airtable here. It'll ask me to name it, so I should do that. So all projects, or maybe I'll just do example number 1. I can also choose a base color, so I can choose light green, and I can also choose an icon here as well. So what you'll notice is that it automatically took that first row and renamed our field headers accordingly. But now I can go ahead and customize my field types so that we're making sure that it reflects the content that we'd like it to contain. The first, of course, is the date field, where we can quickly add, or rather we can quickly change it so it's but a date field instead. As soon as we convert it, you'll see that the cell allows you to only choose a date. And for our project status, let's go ahead and use our single select field, which allows us to create that predefined options in the drop-down menu. We can also convert that as well. If you want to change the color, you can go ahead and go back to our field configuration menu and choose from our various colors available here as well. For our project owner, if these folks are currently collaborators within your base or your workspace, and by that I mean if you actually shared access with them and they're currently existing as a workspace collaborator or a base collaborator, you can actually just quickly change this to a collaborator field, which allows you to choose whether or not you want to add multiple collaborators or notify them when they're added. So let's say I do want to notify both myself and Jacob as soon as we've been tagged to a project. We can then convert this field to a collaborative field type where you'll see our avatars as well as our names directly within the cells here. Last but not least, our project details should be a long text field, just in case we need more than one text to really talk about, really highlight what we want to explain about this project. So that's all for field types, but now we want to make sure we add the relevant views to ensure that our team is aware of the most important information in the views that they need. So for example, let's set up this view so that's called all projects. And actually, let me rename this table as well. It's just projects. I can now create a new view. Let's say I want to create a view that highlights all of our active projects so that it filters for where the status is active. And let's say I also want to see a new view with just our calendar of all the various project due dates. I can create that new calendar view, choose the date field that I want to populate onto this calendar, and then see it automatically drop in. I can also color code this for the project status and make sure that this calendar is completely configured the way that I need it as well. So in terms of the second setup that we were talking about, where we have a different tab for each project, let's look at how we would reconfigure this so that would work in Airtable as well. So it looks like we need to capture various details about our projects. So for this case, our launch party, the owner is myself. There are also project details here, as well as a project date. And you see that the same is true for all of these different tabs for each of these different projects. But within this tab, we also have our various tasks, task-related details such as the task notes, task owner, due date, and whether or not it's completed. How I would configure this is by combining all of our tasks together in one single sheet and adding the project that it's associated with as a new column. So I built that over here where I've combined all the various tasks for each of the various projects into one sheet. I would then export this as a CSV. So again, download as CSV. So because this fits my criteria of making sure that the first row contains the headers for each field, and how each field now contains the same type of information, where the task is a single line text, our owners are all names of individuals that we're assigning the task to, and every single cell within the due date field is also a date. So I can go ahead and now export this as a CSV and now upload this as well to my workspace. Again, I would click on importing a spreadsheet, choosing my CSV from here, and go ahead and upload that directly as well. For this one, let's go with a checkbox, and for my name, let's go with example number 2. Then dive into my base and see that it's exactly as I set up in my spreadsheet, where I have the headers here on the top and how my cells all reflect what I had previously set up in my CSV. Again, with owner, I can use the collaborator field and notify all these folks as well. And for my due date, I can configure this so it's a date field as well. And for my completed, I can actually use a checkbox field here. So I can go ahead and see automatically it'll change it to one of these styles that I choose from, stick with a standard green check mark, and all the ones that had X's in them are now automatically checked off. For those that are unchecked, you do have the option, of course, to check it when it's ready. For my notes, I can change this back to a long text field so that we keep track of additional details if we need to. And for my projects, this will be something that we will be, this will be a field that we'll need to configure as a linked record field. The reason for that is because we have all those project level details that we wanted to keep track of as well. So instead of just keeping the name of the project, we can actually create a brand new table for our project that allows us to keep track of that meta information or those additional details about our projects. We can go to our projects table and see all 3 of those projects were automatically populated as soon as I created that linked record field, so that we can see all of the project names here in the primary field. So essentially what this table is all about, what this project's table is containing, as well as all the tasks that are related to that project. We can now look at what we had added in our first spreadsheet here, where we have all our metadata about our projects here on the top, and add these project level details. So the project owner, the details, etc. So let's say that the first detail that we want to keep track of is the launch party's details. So we can go ahead and add that here. And pull that in from our user group project here as well. And oops, as well as a creative conference here as well. So now we have a table dedicated to our project, a table dedicated to our tasks, and we can quickly at a glance get that granular view for our project as well as our tasks whenever we need it. So in terms of configuring the views that we need, of course, we'll need to make sure that we organize it so it's easy to understand what we're looking at. So we can quickly see here that we can group by our project. So at a glance, we can see all the tasks related to our projects. We can also rename this so it says all tasks. We can create a view where it's just all about the launch party's tasks, and create a quick filter where we can filter for where the project contains launch party. And we can also see incomplete tasks by filtering that checkbox field as well. So we can say we only want to see the projects where the completed field is not yet checked. So to recap, how you can structure your spreadsheet so that it ensures a seamless import is to first structure your spreadsheet like a database, where each field contains the same type of information, where each field has the field header in the first row. Then export your spreadsheet as a CSV, then you can import your CSV as a new base, which is what we've done, or you can do a new table as well. Then you would customize your base with the correct field types, views, as well as blocks to ensure you're generating the insights and actionable reports that you need. So over here, one more example I want to show you is how to import a new table from a CSV. You can just click on that plus icon here and select import a spreadsheet. Well, you'll be given that very familiar dialog that you were given when you're uploading a CSV as a brand new base. I also want to touch on how you can append CSVs to an existing base. So let's say that you actually want to add additional information to your tasks, where you are, let's say, adding information about reaching out to sponsors, where you want to actually add the various sponsors that you've reached out to. You can do so by using our CSV import block, which you can explore here in the blocks platform when you add it to your base. You can drag and drop the CSV file to import it, and you can also dig into how to get started with this block through the support article over at support.airtable.com. That's all for today in terms of time, but if you have any questions at all, feel free to reach out to us at help@airtable.com, as well as, of course, support.airtable.com. We're super happy you could all join us today in terms of just learning how to get started, and you can definitely learn more about all the other features that are available in Airtable through our help articles over here as well. Stay tuned for the next webinar. It will be all about views, and it will happen next Thursday. And we'll be sending out emails as well as post on social to let you know when our next webinar will be happening. So thank you again for joining, and I'll be leaving the webinar on for a few more minutes for those questions to be answered over in the questions tab. But thank you again, and we hope to see you soon next time.